In this video essay, I'm going to break down auteur theory in conjunction with thematic analysis and mise-en-scène. I will look at the history of auteur theory, discuss the components that make up auteur theory, especially around themes and mise-en-scène with relevant theorists. Auteur theory is the idea that the director is the author and primary creative force behind a movie. Though it can be widely accepted that the right of authorship goes to the director, it is sometimes debated that the author is the writer, as the word auteur is French for author. Auteur theory was first thought of from a French publication known widely as Notes on Cinema in 1954. It was Francois Truffaut, the director, that wrote a scornful piece on the state of the French cinema at the time. In particular, Truffaut championed Alfred Hitchcock and Howard Hawkins, but it was Andrew Sarris that went on to refer to Truffaut's manifesto as auteur theory. It was Truffaut that said, "There are no good or bad movies, only good and bad directors." I think that's a very powerful piece right there for a start. And the way that Sarris thought of the theory was that it was a way to look at a director's career, though he also does say that not all directors are authors, or authors, depending if you're fancy or not. Though in contrast to this theory, counter-arguments were made by a lady in which Sarris called a lady critic with a lively sense of outrage, meaning she was an independent woman with a voice, which transpired to be Pauline Kael. Never denied that in many cases directors provide the dominant vision in a film, and Sarris began backtracking and tinkering with his original concept almost from the beginning. Though for those who argue against auteur theory today are not rehashing the Sarris-Kael incident, instead they are fighting the notion that has evolved over 50 years that suggests that director is exclusively responsible for the quality of a film. It is argued that in a medium such as cinema, the actors, screenwriters, and cinematographers, etc. have a great relation to the quality of the final production. Those who argue in support of directors usually point out that since the director can have the final say over the overall aspects of the production, they are ultimately responsible for contributing factors to a film. Throughout the history of film, almost no director did have the level of control as we see now. Prior to the independent film movement in the 1950s, the producer often dominated creative control of the film. This is definitely for Ferdinand Zecca at Piètre Ferrères in the earliest days of French cinema, as it is for David Selznick during the golden age of Hollywood. If one were to watch RKO horror films produced by Val Lewton's Snake Pit in the 1940s, there is a consistency of theme and technique where whether Jackie Porner, Robert Wise, or Mark Robinson served as director. A great example of an auteur-director is Tim Burton, as he exhibits the very essence of what auteur theory is, with his constant use of colour, character design, recurring actors, and his gothic/dark themes. As for the mise-en-scène of Tim Burton's films, as for the colour that Tim Burton typically would use in his films, he likes to really juxtapose colours against one another. For example, in The Corpse Bride, the underworld or the land of the dead, is bright and vibrant, which you wouldn't expect of the land of the dead to be, and whereas the land of the living is very drab and dry and grey-scaled and, just very meh. So he definitely has a great use of colour, and he uses it in a very unique way to represent whatever he has on screen. As for character design, Tim Burton's character designs are very specific to him. When you see a Tim Burton character, you know instantly it's Tim Burton, with the way his characters are very disproportionated, and if they're skinny, they're super skinny, and if they're chubby, they're really chubby. But they're they're either one or the other. They're not like, he doesn't really have both, especially in his animations. For example, in A Nightmare Before Christmas, Jack Skellington is very skinny, but he's just very tall, whereas other characters within The Nightmare Before Christmas who are maybe chubby are small and chubby. There's no like tall chubbies. Tim Burton also likes to use reoccurring actors in his films. Typically loves using Johnny Depp, Helen Carter, Christopher Lee, and Michael Keaton. This is something that other directors do as well, but Tim Burton is very well known for it, especially using Johnny Depp, as he was in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Edward Scissorhands, and other Burton films. As for thematic analysis, Tim Burton's themes are nearly always dark in nature. They're dark, a little bit creepy. No matter what he is putting on screen, for example, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is supposed to be fun and, you know, going into a chocolate factory and it's great and it's all this, but he makes it a little bit dark, you know, the tragic backstory of Willy Wonka's dad and, you know, what happens to the kids that are on the tour, and as for The Corpse Bride, like, I think that is one of his more dark animations, because a woman who's died falling in love with a man who's still living, and yeah, I just think that's a really dark theme, and I think for some kids as well find his films a little bit, especially his animations, like a little bit scary in nature, but that's quintessentially Tim Burton himself. He is a creepy man. His themes are creepy, you know, he's not a creepy man, it's just his themes are creepy. With this mise-en-scene and the themes throughout, I think we can definitely say Tim Burton is an auteur, and he is a prime example of an auteur director and fully supports everything that auteur theory is about. And because it's just so easy to identify a Tim Burton film from any other film that's out in the market. So, like, subscribe, comment down below.